to kind of anchor us in this faculty career path series that we've been doing. We did a session earlier on kind of job market 101 and what the timeline looks like for applying for faculty job applications. We did a session on caring for yourself during the search. So those two earlier sessions were all about kind of preparing to undertake the preparation of your documents and searching for jobs and all of that. And now we're really going to get into the meat of the series where we're starting to look at the various pieces of the application. Today, we're going to be talking about CVs and cover letters, and then we'll have future sessions on your teaching statements, your research statements, and more materials that we'll share more about those future sessions at the end. But welcome. If I know many of you, and I'm happy to see you here, but if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Molly Lotz, and I'm the Director for Research Training Initiatives in the Graduate School, and I'm joined by Lisa Ospitali. Lisa, do you want to say a quick hi?
Good morning. I love to see so many familiar faces. I'm Lisa Ospitali with the Center for Inclusive Education. I'm a program manager here and work very closely with Molly and our amazing postdocs here on campus.
Thanks. All right, so just to get us started today, I wasn't, since we're a nice size group, let's just go around and I know many of us know each other, but let's just do quick introductions and reintroductions so we know who is in the space. So we'll go around and just share your name, your department, and then I would love you to share as best you can kind of one sentence about either your research or what your focus is in looking for a faculty job. So that could be like, I'm focused on a research position, I'm focused on a teaching position, I'm not sure what my focus is. All of those are acceptable answers. And then when you plan to go on the job market. Do we want to start with Gabe? I saw you turn your camera on, so I'm going to pick on you next, and then you can popcorn it to somebody else.
Oh, sorry, you said me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Gabriel. I'm a postdoc here for like 3 years and a couple of months at the microbiology and immunology department. And right now, my focus is on research positions such as in industry or even like scientific communication level. I'm also considering that. And I'm already like on the job market right now.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Who do you want to pick next?
I don't know, Lisa.
Hi, my name's Lisa Suarez. I'm in the program of public health. And yeah, the job market is for me this fall. So excited to be here.
Great.
And let me see the other participants. Oh, Antonio.
And if you can't come on camera and you want to be in the chat, that's fine too. Okay.
He did go to the chat.
All right. We can move to somebody else. Maybe Kristen, your square is up next to my screen.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm in the Department of Ecology and Evolution, studying doing transcriptomics with bats. I am interested in probably the job market maybe next year, probably like later, maybe next spring or something like that. And still deciding on type of position I would like to do, more research or more teaching focus, so still deciding that. I will popcorn to Jacqueline.
Hi everyone, I'm Jacqueline and I'm in the chemistry department, and my research is focused on organic chemistry and some imaging applications. And um, institution-wise, I'd be looking maybe for a position with predominantly teaching and some research. And I think I'd start looking at the job market this upcoming fall. I'll popcorn it to Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine, but I go by Katie. The department that I'm in, or the research group, is IACS, And my research is in the area of cognitive science. The project that I'm working on at Stony Brook is about creativity. And I think I'll probably go on the job market in a year. And yeah, I'm not sure what the focus would be, teaching or research. I think some combination, maybe slightly leaning towards the teaching side. And I will popcorn it to Sarah Lee.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm in the Department of Technology and Society. I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate, so I'm planning to defend my dissertation research this fall. So I should be in the job market in a few months. And my research is green infrastructure in urban area from the human behavior aspect. I look forward to these sessions, workshop sessions, and I will popcorn it to Lisa. Oh yeah, Lisa. Yeah, she chatted. Okay, then Pratik.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm senior research scientist at the Department of Biomedical Informatics. I'm in job market for the faculty position, mostly into the research oriented. I'm just applying for the different tenure track faculty position. So I'm just focusing if the job market for the faculty position into the research, like, rather than mostly into the teaching, research and teaching and writing different grants, like how to write the early career grants for the early career faculty positions. So I'm just looking for those things. Thank you, everyone. And I pick up probably Carrie, right?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm just out of the shower, so my hair is up in a towel. So if you are okay with me just leaving, I had it in my calendar that was starting at noon, so I apologize. So my name is Carrie Wright. I am sort of straddling two sort of positions at the moment. I just completed my first year as an adjunct lecturer at Stony Brook, and then I spend my summers as a postdoc at Stony Brook. So teaching has been in the Department of Anthropology. My research is in jointly Department of Anthropology and Geosciences. I'm not entirely sure whether I want to focus on teaching or research. I think probably absolutely both. I love them both. It's not so much that I have a set time that I want to enter the job market. It's more that if a tenure position comes available that looks to be a good fit for my skills and ability, I want to be potentially ready to spring on it. Everything needs a good update because I've been an adjunct for the last few years at other schools. And it's not very secure and very safe to be an adjunct. So I'd love some stability. Thank you. And honestly, I've lost track of who has not spoken yet. I apologize.
Why don't we do this? If you have not gone yet and you would like to unmute yourself, just raise your hand so we know who still has to go. And if not, and you want to throw your response in the chat, that works too.
Looks like Alejandra.
Yeah.
Hey guys. First, thank you very much, guys, for having these sessions. They're really useful. I'm Alejandra. I'm in the mathematics department. I guess my research is like on PDE/geometrical analysis. And I guess I'm planning to apply like at the end of this year. And I guess Fan Inside for like.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my name is Fan Ying, and I'm currently a postdoc research in the physics department. I'm actively on the job market and seeking research or technical roles in physics, data science, or computing. Maybe I'm not sure who is gonna be the next. Maybe
Christina has
Christina?
her-
Yeah, Christina.
Hi, my name's Christina and I'm in the English department. I am not going to be on the job market for a while, but I was on the job market prior to entering my PhD, and was not having much success, so I would like to get started early and try and have more success this time around. And I am interested in a primarily teaching position.
Great, thank you, Christina. And I think everybody else is joining us in the chat. I don't
Yeah.
see any other hands up. So we can get started, and it's helpful to hear kind of where everybody is in their process. So here's what we'll be doing today. So we're going to be talking through some best practices for preparing a CV and cover letter, and the kind of different kind of situations that you want to be responsive to when you're thinking about your CV and cover letters, whether you're applying for research institutions or teaching institutions, or thinking about, you know, how to have a master template for your CV that you then tailor for different opportunities. And we're also going to be thinking about looking at a job ad and being responsive to that, and thinking about what are the elements that we want to pull from a job ad into our cover letter to tell a story about how we might fit that opportunity as a future potential colleague. So we're going to start talking. I have this workshop split into kind of two halves. So we're going to start with the CV and move ahead to the cover letter after that. So unlike the teaching statement, the research statement, the pieces of the faculty application we're going to be working on for future workshops, the CV and the cover letter, like, these are your workhorses for your job application. Every application that you send out is going to ask for these documents. So these are where you want to spend the bulk of your time and your energy as you're preparing your materials. As I said in an earlier session, it's kind of frustrating that different job ads will ask for many different permutations of documents. Some will ask for teaching evaluation, some will ask for letters of reference. There's a lot of variability in what is required for an application, but just about every single one is going to ask for a CV and cover letter. So as you're preparing materials this summer for a fall search, here's where you want to spend a lot of your time. And I pulled out this quote from a really nice article from the Chronicle called The Rhetoric of the CV that I invite you to read a little bit more in depth, because it kind of illustrates this point that everybody who is reviewing your job materials is going to be looking at your CV. And so you want it to do a lot of work in telling the story of your academic accomplishments and the kind of scope of your expertise. And I don't say that to put too much pressure on anybody. I know that this is a stressful process, as we talked about in our last session. Just that if you are thinking about how to budget your time, and you have a goal for how many hours per week you want to spend in looking at these materials, if you spend a good amount of time setting up your CV, and you have a template or maybe a couple of templates for different kinds of institutions set up for yourself, it's going to make the search process and the application process later on so much easier. So do spend that time. So I'm going to go through just a couple of best practices for CVs. I will move through these rather quickly in the interest of time, but we are going to send out the recording and the slides so you can review these in some more depth later. And of course, I'm always happy to talk to you about that, and we'll have a review session later on if you want to ask any particular questions. Also, if you have any questions as we move through this workshop, you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and Lisa will flag me if I need to stop and answer anything, or feel free to just unmute yourself and interrupt me. I'm very happy for people to interrupt me because I have a lot of windows open on my screen and I don't always see what's happening in the chat. So your CV is really unlike a resume that you will send for industry opportunities. If any of you are doing a dual faculty industry search, your CV is comprehensive, right? A resume is something that you're pulling out pieces of your experience that fit particularly that job. Your CV is just everything you've done from your graduate work onwards. It's just kind of a brain dump of all of your stuff, but that doesn't mean it should be unfocused. You really want to think about how you organize the information on your CV, and use the subheading columns to kind of front load the information that you feel is most important for each opportunity. So for many of you, that will be like peer-reviewed publications, first author papers, anything that is competitive, anything that is, really kind of speaks to the prestige of your work. But you want to, especially if you're doing a search where you're thinking about teaching institutions, you want to think about what are the pieces of your experience that are going to be most interesting and attractive to the search committee who's reviewing these materials. And so those are the things that you want to have happen higher on your CV so that they will be kind of top of mind and right in front of the people who are reading it first. Keep in mind that that a search committee is going through hundreds of CV documents. So you want yours to be legible, to be clear, and also to have the most important things about you right up at the top. So nobody has to go hunting through to figure out what you want them to know about you. So typically there's a timeline aspect to it, but the piece of it that you can control is how you order those subheadings. So within a subheading that covers your education, for example, it would be oldest to most recent experience in education. So your PhD would be at the top, for example, but that subheading section could happen anywhere in the document. So you might move it up or down depending on what you feel is most relevant. You want to look at examples from within your discipline. In this workshop, I made the choice not to offer any examples because they will be discipline specific and I can't possibly represent everybody's discipline in this space. So I encourage you all to kind of look around at colleagues, maybe your advisor, do some research online of people in your field and see if you can find their CV as an example to use, and look at kind of how they order their subheadings, see if there's kind of formatting guidelines that you can also follow there. Also importantly, increasingly importantly, including keywords from a job ad are important because you want your documents to be flagged in kind of any algorithm that's going through the CVs and cover letters. So if you have a job ad and there's ways that you can kind of emulate some of the language in there in your CV as you are tailoring that template for that specific opportunity, do that as much as possible for both your CV and your cover letter. And generally, the guidance that I would offer in this session is to do a lot of work to have a template, and get that in a really good state. Maybe have a couple of versions for that, for one where your teaching experience is most prominent for a teaching institution or a technical college, if those are opportunities you're going for, and one that is more research focused where your research is primary, and then tailor those further as you are encountering job ads. So as I said, search for examples in your field. I also offer here some resources for kind of formatting the CV and getting really granular in what is the etiquette around CVs that is really up to date. So the two that I really like are Dr. Karen's Rules of the Academic CV. That's from a blog called The Professor is In, and she actually has a book out now too. But that's a really, really exhaustive list of kind of how to set up your CV, and she covers everything from how to talk about a postdoc experience in a CV to how to think about CVs when you're applying outside of the US. So that's a really great resource that I would like to direct you to. And then the Chronicle also has a do's and don'ts of creating your CV that is also kind of updated every year. So those are great places to start as you're developing that template document that you'll then again adapt to different opportunities. So a place to start, and also again think about, do you want to split that into a couple of different types of templates that might be helpful. And also, this is a really small thing. This seems kind of nitpicky, but trust me that it is so important. Convert your CV to a PDF file before you send it. Having been on kind of both sides of a search, I cannot tell you how many people send their documents as Word files. And the problem with that is cross-platform issues and then also formatting issues. So with all of the time that you will be spending thinking about how you're formatting your CV, you want to make sure that formatting communicates to the person who's receiving it. And the best way to do that is to print it as a PDF file and save it as PDF so that everything kind of stays where you want it to be. Otherwise, it might get wonky and you don't want that. And then as kind of a bonus, everyone here has access to a free affiliate membership with the National Postdoc Association because Stony Brook is a member institution of the National Postdoc Association. And through your affiliate membership, you have access to a tool called Flamingo, which comes from PsyPhD. Flamingo is mostly used for an industry search, but I have it here because they have a really nice way of using AI to generate CV documents based on job ads. So I offer it here. I don't think this should be the place that you start. I think you should spend that time kind of going through those, again, best practice lists and creating your template, thinking about your experience, kind of spending time writing it all down and thinking about how you want to prioritize it and format it and doing that work on your own. But once you are looking at job opportunities and you want to think about how to be responsive to those with your documents, I would explore Flamingo and kind of take that into consideration along with what you're doing. Like you don't want that to be the only tool that you use. Same with like ChatGPT, which I will talk about more in a second. AI it's a great tool. It's a great place to kind of help you generate ideas. But you want your documents to feel very authentic to you. And of course to be accurate and genuine and all of those things. Remember that you are applying to a job and you're sending your documents to people who want to work with they want a future colleague who is a human being. And so the more that, as professional and as formal as these documents are, the more that they can tell the story about you as a human being who might be great to work with, that is a good thing. Okay, so I want to give maybe about 5 minutes here. 5 minutes here. For each of you, if you have access to your search right now, if you're at your computer and not kind of listening while you're working on something else, just do a quick Google search. Let's all just take a minute to do a quick Google search and see if we can find a CV from somebody in our discipline that might serve as an example for us. So just as an example, I will show you how I found a couple. I'm going to switch the share of my screen. I just Googled people in my field whose work I really like and CV, and I Googled that, and I came up with a couple of examples of CVs. So this one, for example, is Kilozana Tompkins, who's somebody whose work I use a lot, and she has her CV on her website, and so it's formatted not for job opportunities because she has a job, but as like a public-facing CV. But the reason I look at this as an example is because it tells me a lot about how somebody in my discipline, but also, somebody in the kind of job that is interesting to me, right, might prioritize information about herself professionally. So she orders it in terms of her academic employment, education, and then, awards, fellowships, and grants, right, publications. But that gives me a sense of kind of like what kinds of information is important to prioritize here. Another one is a colleague of mine. I searched because his CV is available right on his faculty profile page. So that's somewhere where you might be able to find people's CVs. A lot of institutions kind of have that as their convention on a faculty profile. So that's all to say that these documents are available, and you want to use that as your guide before you start drafting your documents, because why start things from scratch when there are examples there for us to follow that can be helpful. All right. So I'm going to stop talking for a second so you all can search. And then I will, I think instead of doing pairs, since folks are kind of in different places right now, we'll just have a quick discussion about that before we move forward. Yeah, Kristen.
So, I mean, I see CVs, and I mean, I'm definitely not at that stage where they're just like so long and like wordy. And when you're probably sending them out, like obviously that sometimes they might limit it. They'll say like 3 pages or something like that. But is it good to just when we send them out, like have like selected appointments or selected publications or presentations where you're not putting everything like it's like this, like we call it at my old lab we used to call it a dump truck CV where you're just like dumping your whole life history on this, but only selected pieces, but also like how in depth should you go in describing some of like the work that you did. Like on a resume, you'll usually say like what you were responsible for. And so with a CV, I don't know how in depth to be with that because it can just get so long and honestly like look kind of tiring to look at because there's just so much on it.
Yeah,
So
that's a
how do
great
you go about
question.
that?
So I wouldn't leave anything out of your CV. You do want to kind of dump everything on there because you do want it to be an exhaustive list of what you've done from your graduate work forward. But what you do have control over is how much detail you have. And so that's where I would say you take your template and you start customizing it based on the job ad that you're responding to. So in your cover letter, which we'll talk about shortly, but in the level of detail of your CV, if there is a previous appointment that you had that you think really sets you up for this role and really speaks to your fit, I would move that up higher on the CV and then also give a little bit of detail, like not too much detail on your CV, but like enough to give somebody who's reading it a sense of why that appointment or that publication or like whatever it is set you up well for that role.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Great question. All right. So did anybody find an example in their search? If you haven't and you feel like you need more time for that, that's okay. But I'm curious whether anybody found something that they can use as a model.
Yeah, what I found was like the LinkedIn profile of some
Mhm.
of my former colleagues. So
Yeah.
is that the same?
So unless they have like a CV document that like some people have on their website, like a CV document that you can download, LinkedIn kind of presets how you prioritize those fields. So that might not give you so much of a sense of how they would organize information, but that might lead you to a place where you can grab that like PDF version. Katie, I saw your hand up.
Oh, I found a CV of someone and I have modeled my CV based on hers. And then I've also in the past incorporated like advice and CVs from other people who have sent them to me. And one thing that someone told me, and I'm curious what you think about this. I mean, we were talking about this before that I don't have very much teaching experience. But what she told me to do is someone that I got some tips from. She was like, it doesn't matter if you've taught a few guest lectures or like the entire course. Just put like the year and the course name next to it. And the same for like if you've done a postdoc for like 6 months or a year, don't put 6 months or a year, just put the year next to it. Like really fluff it up, you know? And I'm curious like what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I think that's fair. I would be maybe judicious about that. Like, and again, you don't need to draw attention to everything on your CV. You want to have it there, but it's up to you what you want to prioritize. And then especially in your cover letter is where you can start telling the story of how those things maybe connect the dots to lead you to this position. So
Right.
so again, yeah, I would list it there. And I think that's fair, like to have the position and the year, right? That is the truth, right? Maybe not the whole truth, but it is the truth, right?
Yeah.
And especially earlier in your career, as you're thinking about what you can list on your CV, I think that is absolutely, fair to do. And Kristen brought up a great point that, some of the examples you'll find are from people who are further along in their careers than you are. So those are helpful, but probably the most helpful model documents will be from people who are in the next stage of their career from you. So like somebody in an assistant professor position is probably a great model for you to look at this point, if those are the kinds of positions that you're looking for.
Molly,
Yeah.
two things from in the chat, really quick. One, Alejandra found Christina Salvador's actual CV. I have pulled it and we can add that to the resources that we send post workshop.
Great.
And then there is a question that Lewis put in that Kristen replied to about working with LinkedIn and other blog links, and really how to utilizing those and how to tailor their own for that and adding to CV and resume. So this has been a question I know I have received in the past as well. So I'm open to looking at finding a campus expert and seeing if we could put a workshop. We could do it as virtual as well and add it later on in the summer if you're interested in doing that.
Definitely. We also have a recording that we'll send out. We did a
There you go.
series on managing your academic online presence where Elizabeth Moon, who's our director for
Yes.
communications in the graduate school, covered LinkedIn and how to set up your LinkedIn and think strategically about that. So we can share that as well.
And
Thanks.
Kristen, if you share the article in the chat, I will grab that as well, and I can add that as a resource in our post email.
I can't find it. I think it was like a blog thing
Okay.
I found so long ago because someone had asked me to share my LinkedIn. And I'm just like, oh God, I gotta make that. So
No worries. We'll include the video that Molly mentioned, and then we'll look at creating a separate session for this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to move us along just so we can get to cover letters, just looking at time. But just to leave our CV section of this workshop, just some additional notes. This is all again informed by the professor is in and other resources, but I wanted to pull out the advice about postdoc positions because I know that it's relevant to everybody in this room. And this would not necessarily be intuitive to me, but the kind of etiquette around listing your postdoc in a CV is that it's included under professional appointments. So even if it's like, obviously a research position, that's kind of where you would list it on your CV. And I did some digging around to see how, whether that's a discipline specific thing. I would, if you see something different when you look at CVs models in your discipline, I would kind of go with that if you see that as a trend, because that will be in more detail than I can offer here. But generally, list your postdoc under a professional appointments heading. And then, if it's a TA-ship, any adjunct teaching, that seems straightforward under teaching experience. And then, a research assistant position as like a graduate student, other lab experience would be under research. Some of you might be doing kind of public facing scholarship or any non-academic work. I'm not sure if that applies to everyone, but I think I can think of at least one person here who might be thinking about that. That's kind of a more complicated decision about whether to include in your CV. Not everybody considers that part of an academic CV, although increasingly I think it is considered, like public facing scholarship, I think would be considered relevant. And by public facing scholarship, I mean like an article in the Chronicle or like a blog post or something where you're talking about your research and you're talking about your work, but it's not necessarily intended for an academic audience. My thought about that would be that if it is, that's something that you would kind of toggle on or off of your template, depending on whether it's relevant to the position. So if you feel like including it would be helpful for you to describe your fit for the position that you're applying to, leave it in there. If not, I would take it off. And if you do leave it in there, I would talk about it in your cover letter to kind of tell the story of why you've taken on that experience and what it means to you in your overall career trajectory. And then just a last note about like if you have publications that you're listing, you want to separate those out by type, and then anything forthcoming should be, or like in progress should be in its own section. So you want to be very clear within your publications about, obviously prioritize anything first author, right? But you want to be clear about like what's actually out there and what is in progress. Okay. Before I move forward to cover letters, are there any other questions about CVs? Antonio, that's a great question. So I think this is kind of like old school CVs used to have like mailing addresses and all this kind of information on there. Don't put that in. Like, you do not need to put your whole life story on there. A search committee wants to know about your professional and academic preparation. They do not need to know, your place of birth or, your home mailing address. Especially now that CVs become kind of public documents and circulate online, you don't want that information about you out there. So feel free to leave that off. Current workplace address. Well, Kristen, what do you mean by address? I would put your current workplace, but you don't necessarily need to put like the
Okay.
street address of it.
Okay, sometimes I see like people have, instead of like their home address or their like phone number, they put like the department they're in's address and phone number. So I didn't know, even though like no one has ever called me at the department. So I didn't know. Can we take that out?
I mean, I would say yes. If you see lots of other examples in your field where people do that, then maybe it's, it's a convention in your field that and you want to follow that. But otherwise, I don't really see a reason to leave that in.
Okay.
Yeah. Carrie, great question about ORCID. So again, in that academic online presence series, which we will share in the follow-up, we did a session on ORCID and kind of all of these like kind of places where your work and your virtual CV lives online. That's all in that series. So we'll share the links to those recordings because that's all in there, but that's where we go into like ORCID and LinkedIn and kind of other places where you your work lives online. Okay, so cover letters. So whereas the CV is the place where, as Kristen says, you kind of like dump all of your expertise and like you put it all on the page and then you figure out how you want to organize it. And that tells the story of where you have been as a scholar and as a professional. The cover letter is where you're going to talk about your future and your promise as a future colleague and future academic. So it's a place for you, as I've kind of gestured to previously, it's a place for you to connect the dots for the people who are reading your materials about how you are going to take the experience that you've had and leverage it into this new position. And it's where you really want to think about telling your story. So as this is an article, again, from the Chronicle on preparing the cover letter, which is about the promise of the cover letter. How you want to use this document as a strategy to convince the people that you hopefully will be working with one day that you would be a great colleague and a great fit for their department. So as I said, the cover letter should tell the story of who you are as an academic, so who you are in the context of your research, but you also want to communicate who you will be as a colleague. And to do that, not only do you want to be really clear in your prose and show that you've edited, right? If you have a bunch of typos in there, it's gonna say something about your attention to detail and maybe your work ethic that you don't want to say, and that isn't true about you. So you want to spend some time on this document and make sure that it reflects you genuinely. But also you want to show that you've done your research about the institution and the department that you're applying to, because that's also going to say something about you as a colleague and your kind of commitment to that space, and how much you will invest if they bring you on board and hire you. That said, you don't want to be too like there's a line there. You don't want to be too effusive. You don't want to be you don't want to go kind of overboard and like researching every single faculty member and doing all of that. You just want to show that you understand something about what kind of institution it is, what their mission is, what their focus is, whether they're focused on teaching or research, and doing a look at their website and looking at the job ad carefully will tell you that. And I would also look at some of the faculty profiles in the department that's offering the job, and that will also tell you kind of what their priorities are. Another great idea is to look at their course bulletin. If they mention, if it's a teaching focused institution and they mention that they are looking for somebody to create a course or to cover kind of entry level courses, knowing kind of what their curriculum looks like and where you might be able to contribute to teaching in that curriculum would also be really helpful to mention, because especially at like a technical college or a teaching focused college, they need somebody to cover courses. And so showing that you are able to, teach 101 or 102, and that you have experience doing that, and you've put some thought into how you might do that in maybe new and exciting ways, can really go a long way. And you also want to think about the length of your cover letter. Generally, your cover letter, in order to do all of these things, will be about, I would say, 1.5 to 2 pages. You want to be thoughtful about how much detail you provide, and kind of pull out the things from your CV that are especially relevant to this particular job, without just kind of doing a whole brain dump of what your dissertation was about and like all the teaching that you've done. Like, really think strategically about what is most important and prioritize that information. Because again, the people who are reading these documents will have read hundreds of documents by that point. So narrative that reads really clearly can go a long way in making your documents stand out.
Molly, there's a quick question from Kristen, just asking about the cover letter with, so should it be a snapshot of all the documents you need to provide?
Kristen, can you say a little bit more about what you mean by a snapshot?
Just kind of like, when you write a paper, your introduction is kind of almost like this is basically what I'm going to be telling you about. And so it's just kind of focusing on like the highlights of your CV, kind of the highlights of your research statement that you might provide, all the teaching statement, and then kind of like how you'll best fit into the department. So you're not like saying a lot more, but you're just kind of giving the highlights of everything, because I imagine it's the first document they'll read. Sort of like an abstract of yourself.
That is a great question. I'm going to ask you to put a pin on that, because I think I might answer that in a future slide. And then if I don't, we can revisit it and talk about it a little bit more. So this is the slide that I'm thinking about. So this is kind of, and I'm sorry that the font is so small. I was trying to fit everything on here. But this kind of gives you a sense of like, if there's like a formula to the CV, to the cover letter, this is kind of what it is, and what you can follow as again, your base template that you'll then customize. And again, as with everything that I say in this workshop, look for examples that maybe, if you have colleagues who've been on the market recently and can share an example of a cover letter, or maybe your advisor has one that they can hunt down for you that you can find, I think the more you see of other people's documents, the better. But generally, this is the kind of structure that you want to follow to tell this narrative that you want to convey. So first and foremost, use Stony Brook letterhead. Kristen, as you were saying, like before about the address and stuff, like just use the logo of the institution that you're applying from. And I've linked it, the Stony Brook letterhead here in the slides. So if you're using these slides, you'll just have it right there ready for you to use as a template. So your introductory paragraph does a lot of work here. And it's where you're going to want to spend the most time as you're revising this document. You're going to be clear about the position that you're applying for. And guys, make sure it's the right position, because I have read a lot of job materials where people have written the wrong institution or the wrong job in their document, and then they've submitted it. And I totally get that, because you're applying to maybe hundreds of applications, but just make sure that you check this before you submit your documents, that it's the right institution. And then this second bullet point is really all of the work of this cover letter. You want to answer the question, how does this position fit my academic identity? And so that's where you really want to do some thinking before you even start writing here. Do some journaling. Think about who are you as an academic? Who have you been in your graduate work? Who are you in your postdoc? Who do you see yourself becoming in your career? And that can evolve for you, but you want to think about, what really are your core values related to your work? And then how will this particular opportunity that you're writing to in this job ad fit with what you know about yourself? That's a really hard question to answer. I want to acknowledge that, especially when you are in a moment where you're trying to be flexible and respond to a number of opportunities. Being in a job search where you're kind of trying on different possible futures, it's easy to lose sight of who you feel that you are as an academic. But the more time you spend reflecting on that, and the more that you have that ready, the more you'll be able to connect with opportunities to do that thing in a new space. So this is where, as you're crafting your template for your cover letter, spend a lot of time thinking about how to say this in a way that is succinct and feels genuine, and feels true to you. And then you'll kind of make sure you're adapting that to the different opportunities that come in front of you. So that introductory paragraph is like, Kristen, as you were saying, like a preview or snapshot of like what you're about to tell them. That's kind of where you do that, but you're framing the rest of the letter to kind of tell the story that you want to tell about yourself. And so then in your body paragraphs, that will all be in support of this statement that you've made in the introductory paragraph. So again, depending on what kind of institution you're applying for, what kind of position you're applying for, you're going to prioritize research and teaching differently. So maybe your research paragraph falls lower down on the document and you prioritize your teaching, or vice versa. But regardless, you'll have a couple of body paragraphs, one on research and one on teaching, where you will talk about what you've done in the past, what you hope to do in the future, what you plan to do in the future given this opportunity, and how that illustrates your fit for this position. And then a final paragraph where you kind of summarize all of that and show your enthusiasm for continuing to contribute to the department, to be a future colleague, and then this is where Antonio, you would include your contact information in the hopes that they reach out to you for an interview. All right. So I hope that I'm somebody who likes a lot of structure, and so hopefully this kind of gives you a guide of where to start. But again, that writing that introductory paragraph is where, that's where staring at a blank page happens, because you have to kind of tell that story. And we talked, if you were able to join us at our session, what was that? Lisa, was that last week or the week before? I'm losing track of time. Where we were talking about, just kind of caring for yourself on the job market, setting yourself up with good habits to kind of do this process well. Journaling is a really important one, and it's a place where you can kind of reflect on this narrative that you want to tell in order to be able to do it well, and also keep your goals kind of in mind. Right. So as I said, with the CV as well, you want to have a template where you do a lot of work to craft this document, and then you can, tailor it for different kinds of institutions. You can move your paragraphs around. You can add in different details from your CV depending on what the priorities of the institution are, or what your, what your department, what you learn about the department. But having that core template is really going to save you so much work later on as you're starting to send out, in the fall when the job postings hit and you're sending out, multiple applications every week. You don't want to be writing your cover letter from scratch every single time. So have a template that you can use and repurpose. Just be very, very careful about editing, again, so you don't send, the wrong document to the wrong institution. You want to be able to keep track of those things for yourself. So yes, proofread carefully. Same advice about converting to PDF so that you keep all of your formatting there. One thing I like to do, or I did while I was applying to jobs, is, if there are, once you have your template and you decide kind of what are the things that you want to be in every single application that you send out, because they are true to you and your path, regardless of where you end up. And then you identify the things that you will tailor to each job ad, highlight those things that you're going to edit. and like highlight it in bright yellow so that you can see like the name of the institution, highlight that in bright yellow and like bold it so you can see that you need to change that before you send it off, because you know, these are kind of long documents. You're looking at a lot of them. You don't want to miss something just because you've looked at it a million times. So that can be really helpful to do for yourself. And then, as I said earlier, you can use ChatGPT or like any generative AI tool. Those can be really helpful to get you started on a draft. You can take your CV, you can take the job ad, you know, feed them in with a prompt. There are tons of like, if you Google prompts for creating a cover letter for a position, like it will help you get started there. If the hurdle to you in starting on your search is staring at a blank page, that can be a really great way to get started and get over that moment. But they all end up kind of feeling the same, and the last thing you want to do to distinguish yourself in a search is send a document that sounds like everybody else's document, right? And you know, it just may not work, you know, in terms of academic examples or like what that particular job ad needs. So you can use that to get started, but then do some really careful editing to make sure that it sounds like you, that it's, you know, that it feels genuine and authentic, and that it's appropriate for what you're sending out. Okay, before I move forward, any questions about the cover letter? Awesome. Okay. So again, let's do a little bit of searching if you're able to right now. So I know that they're not, you know, this is not the moment for the job ads to be out, but there are always kind of job ads floating around, you know, especially now, especially at like teaching colleges who are trying to fill slots for the fall. So you can pull up like LinkedIn or Higher Ed Jobs or, you know, your academic association might have a job board, and just see if you can find something. If you can't find anything quickly, that is fine. You can do this exercise later on. But if you can find something, just pull up a job ad. It doesn't have to be a job that you particularly want. This is just kind of a thought exercise. But try to make a case in your mind or on a piece of scratch paper for how you would write about a fit with this position. Think about what qualifications you might highlight in response to this ad, and you know, what you would say about yourself that is maybe true across opportunities, and what you would say about yourself that is very specific to this particular role. So I'll take 2 seconds just to kind of let everybody search, and then we'll see if we want to talk about that. Yes, Was anybody able to find anything? If not, that's okay, but just curious if we came across anything interesting.
There are
Daph-
some thumbs ups.
Daphne, do you want to come off mute if you can and tell us about what you found?
Sure. I was mining for things from the American Association for Anatomy, and like you said, it's not something that I would want to apply to, but I found something from the from a dental school. And very interestingly, in this format, there's like a department overview. This might be a requirement for the website itself, but from that, it gives kind of like kind of some of the stuff that you mentioned we would mine in some of the earlier paragraphs about doing research in the school and plugging that in. And then I could see keywords like the appointee shall provide services furthering the missions of teaching, research, patient care, outreach, and public service. And those are, I guess I'm flagging them now in my mind as to bring those into my CV and my cover letter. So they'd get flagged.
That's great. That's great, Daphne. And as you're kind of pointing to, like the job ads will really tell you what they are prioritizing. You know, they will often put a lot of information in there, not just about the position, but also about the institution and kind of what you know, what the goals are there. So you want to think about how to be responsive to that. Did you, as you were reading that, were you thinking about kind of what that third question there, but like what kinds of, what would stay consistent for you, and then like what might change depending on, you know, different ads that you encountered, or did you not get that far?
I think I got to the part, I think I kind of froze up and I think I like saw those list of things and then immediately tried to be like, well, where would I put this and how would I phrase this that doesn't come off as really gimmicky? So I think I got a little bit caught up in the details of one before contemplating some of the other things.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you said that, because I think that illustrates how easy it can get to kind of respond to a job ad. And like, in order to write a really great cover letter, you have to kind of like put on the life that you would have if you had that job. Like you have to really kind of imagine that and inhabit that. And the tricky part about doing that is then it can be harder to understand what it is about yourself that stays consistent from opportunity to opportunity when you're faced with a whole bunch of them, especially if you're applying to different kinds of institutions, if you're doing an industry search too. So having that time to really think about what is the story about yourself that you want to tell can be really helpful. Great. Anybody else come across anything? Okay. All right. Well, we will talk a little bit next about some of the upcoming workshops in this series, because once you have that CV and cover letter, again, that's going to be the foundation of your application package. And then, you know, we can think about teaching statements, research statements, other elements of the job application package that you will also need to prepare. Again, thinking about how you approach the search. If you missed one of the earlier sessions about like setting yourself up to do a job search and how you're going to organize yourself to do that, we have that in one of the earlier sessions, and we have recordings from last year when we did similar sessions too, so we can send that out in our follow-up. But I'm going to turn it over now to Lisa, who can tell us a little bit more about what is coming up in this series.
Yes, I'm going to get ready to share my screen. Hopefully you can all see the flyer. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay,
can.
great. I wanted to make sure that's what you were
Mhm.
all seeing. So as Molly mentioned, we have several workshops coming up within the series. As you know, today is our CV and cover letter. On June 18th, which is next week at 12 p.m., we will have teaching statements. On June 25th, we'll have research statements, and we are really excited about our June 27th application review process. So there are there is one if you click on the QR code, let me start over. If you click on that QR code, you'll be able to register for the teaching statement and research statement. Next week, when we send out our follow-up email after today's session, that'll include today's presentation, any materials that we discussed. We will also include the separate link to register for the application package review. We'll be meeting at the Writing Center. We have several reviewers set up, and they will sit with you in half an hour one-on-one sessions to go over either your CV and cover letter, your teaching statement, and your research statement. In the RSVP link for that, when we send that out, we're going to ask you to give us your top 2 that you'd like to register for, including time and what you would like to review. We can guarantee the 2 sessions, and then we give you an option to include a third if you'd like it. And if we have availability, we'll provide you that 3rd slot as well. This is going to be a great chance for you to sit one-on-one with a specialist that can help you go through your personalized piece for each of these. I know there was a message in the chat about the teaching statement and having their teaching philosophy. We will go through all of that next week on that June 18th session with actually Kimberly Bell will be the facilitator for that. She works over at CELT, and she really has become a specialist on campus in terms of those teaching philosophies and teaching statement. Thank you again for everyone for joining us. We're going to sit here for a couple of more minutes. If anybody has any questions, please let us know. If you have any questions about the future sessions, let us know. And as Molly also mentioned, we will share our previous workshops that we have had in the past as well with you all. I'm going to stop sharing so we can continue. Nope. Did not stop sharing. Did it stop sharing? No. There it goes. All right, there we go.
Molly, quick question. When you say in the section of publication, when you say separate them by type, what do you mean by type? Type of first author, second, or type of subject that is related to the job we are applying to?
So I mean, like anything that separate what has already been published from like anything that is forthcoming or in progress. But you definitely want to prioritize first author publications if that's appropriate for your field.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I had a question about the cover letter. You mentioned that in the signature you should include your contact information. Would that come under the signature, or how would you format that typically?
Yes. So that would be normally for a business letter template, which is on that. If you click on that Stony Brook letterhead, it'll have it kind of formatted out. But if you just do like a quick Google search of like a business letter template, your address and phone number and everything will be actually at the top in a section, and then you'll just remind them of your email address, right? Then that you're hoping to hear from them. So you just kind of mention it under your signature as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No more questions? Oh, well, have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Use this time for yourselves, maybe for some reflection.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Just suck it up, address it, so we're gonna move on. Like that's the irony. And I'm gonna go around. That went well. They were quiet though.
They're quiet. I think a lot of them were signing on while they were working. So which is important to think about. Oh, let me stop the recording.